All right, it's a Thursday. Been here before, sort of. The last time I was here, I was actually at the upstairs location known as Sippin', and we're actually at the downstairs location known as Bottoms Up. This is a bar in the outer Mission Excelsior area. So out here on a Thursday night enjoying the indoor atmosphere because tomorrow, Friday the 13th, restrictions are actually going to go up in San Francisco. Unfortunately, due to a rise in COVID cases, a lot of the restaurants will not be able to offer indoor dining. And yeah, it just makes for a really difficult time for all of these small businesses in San Francisco as we head into the holiday season and the cold winter. But the outdoor dining and drinking is still going to be available. So if you're looking for a good spot to just have a good time, have some beverages, some really great food, highly recommend checking this place out. It's owned by a lovely lady named Shirley who busts her butt to provide really awesome service and great food and ambiance for people that come here. So yeah, definitely recommend checking out Bottoms Up in the outer Mission of San Francisco. All right, just closing things out. I started the session on Tuesday, November 10th. It is now Wednesday, November 11th. Started at 9 p.m., now a little bit past 1 a.m. So a little bit over a 4-hour session. I made a very huge blunder tonight, and I'm gonna put my big boy pants on and be ready for the comments that I'm gonna get and all of you roasting me. So you'll see which hand I'm talking about in just a little bit here. In this first hand, middle position, who is a tight player that limped with pocket kings earlier in the session, raises to $15, playing roughly $400 total. I'm in the low jack with pocket jacks, and I decide to just flat and big blind calls as well. Three ways to a flop of ace king 8 with 2 hearts. Big blind checks, middle position C bets $30, and it's an easy let go here, so I fold and big blind folds as well. In this next hand, middle position and cutoff limp, button raises to $30, small blind folds. I decide to call from the big blind with jack 9 of spades, middle position and cutoff call as well. We go 4 ways to a flop of king queen 10 two-tone, so I flop the second nuts with a backdoor spade draw. Action checks all the way through. Turn comes a clean 6 of diamonds. I check. Middle position now fires $75, playing $900 back. Cutoff folds. Button calls, playing $400 back. And now it's a good spot to put in a check raise. So I make it $300. Middle position tank folds. And button calls with $200 back. The river comes a clean 8 of spades. I jam. He pretty quickly makes the call. And I take this one down. In this next hand, under the gun, who seems slightly tilted, raises to $20. Hijack calls. I make a loose call from the small blind with 6-9 of clubs and big blind folds. 3 ways to a flop of jack 4-3 with 2 clubs, so I flop a flush draw. I check. Under the gun bets pot $60. Cutoff folds, and I decide to call. Turn comes a deuce of hearts, so I pick up additional equity. I check. Under the gun bets $125 with $340 back. All options are pretty close between folding, calling, and ripping. I need roughly 30% to continue, and assuming all my outs are live, I'm a bit below that, rendering a call to be a losing one in the long run. It's hard to say how much implied odds I have simply because of the following 2 factors. If the front door flush hits, it looks pretty obvious, so she may not call a bet. But as I mentioned, she seems slightly tilted, and she may call a bet on the river if I were to make my hand. Ripping is probably the best play, given that I have no showdown value. I can rep a lot of strong hands such as sets, straights, and also maximize fold equity. All that said, I ultimately settle on the losingest play of the 3 and just make the call. We go to a river of a queen of clubs, so I make my hand and I decide to shove for the $340 effective. She tanks for quite a while and ultimately makes the call. I table my hand and she accidentally turns her hand over, which happened to be 5-6 of diamonds. So I get rather lucky in back-to-back hands to win another sizable pot here. In this next hand, we get 4 limpers, under the gun, low jack, cutoff, and button. I've got ace deuce of spades on the small blind and complete. Big blind raises to $35 with $165 back. And this sets up a chain reaction of calls from the 4 limpers. And when it gets to me, I'm now presented with a pretty unique squeeze opportunity with a hand that could actually be ahead of big blind's raising range at times, assuming that he's raising hands such as suited picture cards. So I opt for a unique squeeze play, and given all the dead money out there, I make it $205, and big blind pretty quickly puts it all in, and all the other players fold. I announce that I don't have much, and I table my hand before the run out, which comes 6-3 deuce, deuce, 8. He mucks his hand, I take down yet another lucky one. In this next hand, under the gun raises to $25. Button calls. I call from the small blind with pocket 3s and the big blind calls as well. 4 ways to a flop of ace 10 4 all clubs. Action checks to the under the gun who bets $85. Button calls. I fold and big blind folds as well. But let's just run through the rest of the hand for the sake of showing how good I'm connecting with the deck here. The turn comes a 5 of hearts. Under the gun bets $150. Button tank calls. The river comes a 3 of diamonds, so it shows how hard I'm still hitting the deck even when I'm not in the hand. River actually checks through, and the under the gun tables ace queen off suit to take it down with top pair. This next hand is a straddle pot. Low jack who likes to limp re-raise limps. I decide to limp along from the hijack with 4-5 of clubs. Cutoff raises to $45. Button, big blind, straddler, and low jack call, and I make the call as well. We go heavily multi-way to a flop of king 10 deuce with 2 clubs. Checks to the initial cutoff raiser who bets $120. 4 players fold back to me, and with a flush draw and a backdoor straight draw, I decide to make the call. The turn comes a jack of diamonds, so I do not improve. I check, and he checks back. The river comes a king of clubs, so I make the flush on a paired board. A bit of good news, bad news. Given this board texture and the action, I decide to go for a block bet of $120. He pretty quickly makes the call. I table my hand and he shows queen jack of clubs, so he makes the bigger flush. I think I was going to lose something in this hand no matter what, as I would have normally raised pre-flop with this particular holding in this position. That said, I think the block bet saved me quite a bit of money on the river, but I do lose this one. This next hand is 6-handed. I raise it to $20 from under the gun with ace jack of diamonds and the small blind calls. Heads up to a flop that comes all red, but not diamonds. It comes 10-8-5. He checks. I decide to take a stab at it for $15. He puts in the check raise to $50 and just an easy fold here, so I let it go. This next hand is 6-handed again. Cutoff raises to $15. I'm on the button with pocket kings and I 3-bet it to $50, and I get calls from the small blind and big blind, and the cutoff folds. 3 ways to a flop of king queen 3 with 2 diamonds and a spade, so I flop top set on a fairly draw heavy board. Checks to me. I down c-bet it for $65 and both the small blind and big blind call. Turn comes an ace of diamonds, so a pretty rough card. Small blind leads for $110. Big blind calls. I decide to just make the call in position. The river comes a 9 of diamonds, putting a 4th diamond on the board, so not good for my hand. Small blind checks. Big blind bets $240. I'm in the tank for a little while and ultimately let it go, and small blind lets it go as well. It's hard to know if big blind had it, as she did call $50 pre-flop. It's really hard to put her on offsuit varieties that contain the jack of diamonds or 10 of diamonds, unless there's exactly pocket jacks or pocket 10s. It is possible that she has a hand like pocket jacks and pocket 10s though, because I did c-bet small on the flop, which allows her to continue with more of her range. But we'll never know if she actually had it, but I think people are going to be under bluffing in this spot, so let this one go. And this next hand, it's 7-handed. Everyone limps to me, and I'm on the button with pocket 8s. I raise it to $35. Small blind folds, big blind calls, and under the gun executes the limp jam for $375. It folds back to me, and these limp re-raises can sometimes be a bit annoying, especially when you step into it with a cusp hand such as pocket 8s. I let it go, and big blind folds as well. And this next hand, under the gun raises to $20. Cutoff calls. I call from the big blind with ace 10 off suit, and we go 3 ways to a flop of king jack 4 with 2 hearts. Action checks through. Turn comes an 8 of hearts, so I pick up the nut flush draw to go with my gutter ball. I check. Under the gun checks. Cutoff bets $40, and I pretty much have the perfect hand to check raise here as a bluff, so I make it $160. Under the gun folds, and cutoff begrudgingly folds as well, so take this one down with ace high. Alright, this next hand is the one that I may get roasted on. I raise it to $20 from under the gun with 4-5 of clubs, button, and big blind call. 3 ways to a flop of 9-3 deuce with 2 clubs, so I flop the open-ended straight flush draw. Big blind checks. I bet $35, button, and big blind call. Turn comes a 6 of hearts, so I make the nuts, and it does put out a backdoor flush draw. Big blind checks. I bet $150, button folds, and big blind calls with another $700 back. The river comes a queen of hearts, so it completes the backdoor flush. When he checks, I level myself into thinking that I don't have a target here to get value from. If he has a pair of nines, I just expect him to fold that pretty often, but I think my hypothesis on that is actually going to be a bit flawed because the club draw does brick out, so he may make a hero call if I decide to bet. But I also think his range is going to be made up of hands such as ace X of hearts, such as ace deuce of hearts, ace 3 of hearts, ace 5 of hearts. So with all that in mind, I decide to make the nitty check back. He shakes his head. I table my hand and it's good. He mentioned that he had river top 2, so a bit of a strange blunder on my part, even though I'm trying to justify it a bit. So yeah, I take this one down, but could have gotten a little bit more value.
Oh, you did? Oh, okay, bad.
Last hand to note, it's 7-handed. Cutoff limps, button raises to $10. Small blind calls. I'm in the big blind with pocket aces and I 3-bet it to $55 and only the cutoff calls. Heads up to a flop of Jack 10-7 rainbow, so not the best flop for aces. I check and he checks back, which is a good sign. The turn comes a 6 of spades, putting backdoor spades on the board, which I block. I check, he bets $60 and it's a good spot to raise for value since I'm heavily underrepresented. I check raise it to $200. He's in the tank for a little while and ultimately lets it go. So no additional value, but do avoid some potentially tricky rivers and take this one down. All right, that's it for the hands. Got off to a very hot start and was up around $1,400 at one point. Then took a little bit of a tumble and was up around $700, and then found some momentum back towards the end of the session and ultimately booked a $1,240 win, in for $900, out for $2,140. So book a nice profit. But yeah, I got hit hard with the deck tonight in both hands that I won and lost. And other than that 4-5 blunder, everything was pretty smooth overall and was able to execute a couple of different things strategically. So happy about that. But yeah, always helps to have the deck hit you. So I'll take it, book it, and on to the next one. And with that, that's when I'll see you.